No, it's not. You know what they found? It's the most profitable way for them to do it.
I was going to say.
So let me rewrite that for you. Utilities agree to go along with the mandates, government mandates, because they make a fortune off of accelerated depreciation of retiring coal plants that are perfectly good and replacing them and building more and expanding their asset base.
Right.
He must think we're stupid.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of PowerGab, your go-to show for all things energy and environmental policy in the state of Colorado. I'm Jake Fogleman, joined as always by my co-host Amy Cooke. In this week's episode, we're going to do a little bit of a mixture, a couple of legislative updates and something a policymaker, a prominent policymaker said in public that we just had to comment on. We'll get to that at the end of the show. First, just a quick legislative update. By the time this show comes out, we're having to pre-record this a little bit, so the session will have already been over, and I'm sure we'll do another legislative recap when that happens. But two bills that I thought were worth commenting on just because I love the famous Calvin Coolidge quote that I'm going to paraphrase, where it's better to kill bad bills than to see good bills become law. And I think that's very true in a state like Colorado where there's always bad bills cooking. And two such bills will not make it across the finish line this year. One of them is one that we've talked about before that really just is such a pet peeve of mine because it's so condescending and smug, and that's House Bill 1277. This was the one that was going to require any fuel retailer, so a gas station or a propane retailer, to put a sticker on their product warning Coloradans that this product is known by the state of Colorado to cause public health harms and increase global warming. And it would have mandated it down to the font size, the font color, the size of the sticker, where it needs to be placed, and it would have punished people that either don't put the sticker up or don't keep it in pristine condition, tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, wasn't the fine like $20,000 a day?
Per day.
Can you imagine owning a little, like, you're the little 7-Eleven
Right.
franchise owner, and somebody rips off the label, and you have one of the, I'm just going to call them the mean girls at the Capitol,
right,
that are looking for this.
Well, it's essentially they created a snitch line that you can report it to the Attorney General's office. Anyone can report, this gas station's not in compliance. Their sticker is faded by the sun or something, and the Attorney General can file basically a deceptive practices claim against that gas station. Anyway, it's a terrible, condescending, smug, everything wrong with nannyism type of bill. And fortunately, the Senate seemed to agree because after a while of it not moving, all of a sudden its prime sponsor, Lisa Cutter, had to come to a committee and say she was voluntarily withdrawing the bill because they just weren't ready for this bill just yet.
Yeah, the public just doesn't appreciate it just yet.
We just weren't ready for their This is all about education, according to them. We just want to educate consumers so people know. Really, it was just shaming you for having the audacity to drive the most common vehicle on the road today. But good riddance. Good riddance. The bill is done. So that's cause for celebration in my book. The other big one we want to talk about is another bill that we teased because we got sort of advanced notice that it might be coming, and that was the 64-page draft behemoth from the Polis administration to entirely shift the goalposts on the state's climate mandates by an entire decade. It ignited a huge firestorm we tore it to shreds in a previous PowerGab episode, and now I think they felt a little bit of the heat and have said that, at least for this year, it's not going to be moving forward.
Yeah, they've said that Polis, it's not going to be a bill this year, as if. The funny thing is, it's like, no, I don't know why everybody was upset. It just wasn't going to be a bill this year.
Right.
It's a 64-page monstrosity. It's a horrible bill. So if you think that we've suddenly been saved by the end of the session, oh no, we're not that lucky, because apparently it's coming back next year. So it's just a reprieve.
Yeah.
That's all we have is a reprieve, which means we'll have to spend the rest of this year educating folks on how horrible that bill is. It moves up the timeline. It accelerates the timeline. One of the things about this bill, too, that this to me is an absolute destroyer of trust.
Yeah.
because remember all of the times that the Polis administration has come to either oil and gas or somebody and said, listen, we just want to do this. We just want to do this. Now it's over. We just want one more little thing.
Yeah.
Now, then it'll be done. This isn't just one more little thing. This is moving up the timeline a decade. And you know why? It's because Polis made a promise. It's a campaign promise. This is to feed the ego. This is a political ego bill. So while we have a reprieve right now, and thank goodness we do, it's coming back. And his ego is not going to accept a cancellation. It'll give it a reprieve, but it's coming back and he's going to want it passed.
Yeah, that's an important point. And the piece we'll drop in the show notes, a news article talking about it not going forward. You even have House Speaker Julie McCluskey saying, I look forward to doing this next year. So they're very intentionally going to bring this back. This conversation is not over. Like you said, Polis himself has been running on 100% renewables by 2040 since, he entered executive office in Colorado. And so I don't think he's going to give that one up so easy. And the other point that you hit on that I think is important just to touch on before we wrap up on this topic is the trust, right? How many truces have we seen? How many oil and gas truces, industry truces, like just this one? But something as dramatic as this, Polis has been recently pretty aggressive in going after the Trump administration's tariff policy, for instance, talking about how it causes uncertainty for businesses. You want to know what causes uncertainty for a Colorado business? Right. Suddenly, all of your long-term planning, because trust me, these folks think in long-term strategic planning, especially the utilities, something as complicated and as necessary as providing reliable power. And suddenly at the last minute, you're just going to drop a bomb on their heads and say, all that hard work and all the stress you've been under to try to meet these goals. Yeah, those are going to get 10 years accelerated and good luck figuring that out.
Yeah, you go from 25 years thinking you've got a 25-year runway. Cushion. Now, we're gonna get it down to 15. And by the way, Polis won't be there.
Right.
That none of those people who make the decision on this will be there to suffer the consequences when, as our modeling shows, that electricity bills by 2040 could be $1,200 a month.
Thousands.
Yeah, $1,200 a month for your utility bill.
Right.
So they won't be there. You'll be cursing them underneath your breath, but they won't be there. They won't be the ones that are going to have to fix this mess. And there's one more thing. This was a person, the Climate and Clean Energy Policy Director for NRDC, what we fondly refer to as one of the mega churches. This is the Natural Resources Defense Council. He said utilities shouldn't be surprised by the draft legislation circulated last month. Actually, it's a she. She said a similar framework has been discussed for 3 years. And we came to other conclusions.
Right.
So for 3 years, bills have been passed, and we came to other conclusions. So surprised? Yeah, everyone's surprised. Maybe they shouldn't be, but maybe it's because you all made promises over the last 3 years for a different timeline, and now you're coming back saying, "Oh, don't be surprised that we dropped it." So because we were just kidding before.
Right. That's an important point. I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of trust moving forward in these negotiations. But of course, we will stay on top of that because I imagine we'll be, like you said, educating and right in the mix of this discussion as it evidently is going to continue to move forward. But the big thing we wanted to talk about after that brief legislative update is an op-ed that caught our eye in the Colorado Sun. It was penned by Will Tour, who is the executive director of the Colorado Energy Office. And the headline is, "The Colorado Way is letting the energy market lead to save consumers money." And I don't know about you all listening at home, but that already caught my eye as a little bit of an eyebrow raiser. Like, saving money. I don't seem to be saving a whole lot of money these days, but I'll let you take it away because I know you have a lot of very strong feelings on some of the claims and arguments made in this piece.
So much on this. But first of all, I'm going to give Will Tour an A for world-class gaslighting. This was impressive. And let's just start with the headline. The Colorado Way is letting the energy market. Now, I'd like to know what market that is requiring electrification. Just remember Eric Blank. We talked about him a few weeks ago. Remember the conversation that was being had at the PUC commission hearing? Can we force a utility that doesn't, a natural gas utility, can we force them to electrify if they don't want to?
Right.
So I'm not certain what market that is. Let me put it this way. This is a market that has to take orders.
Right.
And it isn't following. It is a follower. It is not a leader.
Well, think about what we just talked about, a bill from this very energy office that was going to create a 10-year acceleration on a mandate to change your entire fuel system. So.
This is gaslighting on the level of Joe Biden is really sharp and engaged.
Doing backflips behind the scenes, yeah.
Yeah, and if this is an energy market, then vaccine mandates were choice.
Right.
Like that's how I don't know, good or bad, Will Tour is at gaslighting. I mean, this is exceptional. So let's look. I actually thought, I'm going to rewrite it for them. I said opinion. The Colorado way is central planning disguised as a market to raise your prices. So fixed it for you. Cross it out. But the whole point of this is, first of all, it's Will Tour trying to disavow you of everything you're seeing and you're paying on your bill. So in other words, no, when I look at my utility bill, it hasn't gone up. No, because he's saving you money. And no, there aren't mandates. I'm not being forced into this. It is a column by the Sun. This is embarrassing that even a publication would even print it, but because everything in here is not true. He starts. I take it back. There's one thing.
Oh yeah.
The national poll that more than half Americans say they're worried about being able to pay their electricity bills. That is true. And actually, we found that in our own poll.
I was going to say, we've done several polls.
Number one was, can you pay for your electricity bill? But this whole piece is Will Tour he's trying to say he is actually penning that Colorado mandate this plethora, this cornucopia of legislation that they have been passing over the last 15 years or so is all designed to give you choice.
I was going to say,
to lower your bills.
I can think of at least just in the Polis era, so 2019 on, say, I think around 100 bills that have gone through I did a tally on this a few weeks ago, just a rough tally, napkin math kind of a situation.
Yeah, back of the
And it's 100 bills that have been passed, this or that, ranging from minor tweaks and regulatory proceedings to giant clean energy plan, landscape altering mandates. And once again, 100 pieces of legislation in 5 years or so. I'm not sure how market driven you can call that.
Yeah. So let's just go to the second paragraph. So the first paragraph cites a national poll.
This one's my favorite.
That you know what, I'm going to let you do it because the first one just cites a national poll.
Yeah.
And that's the only kernel of truth. I'll let you have the second paragraph because it's one of these things where I burst out laughing.
I was just going to say, I actually laughed out loud when I saw this because the claim is Colorado is ranked in the top 10 nationally for lowest household energy costs, including electricity. And there's a hyperlink on the top 10. And I thought, well, we do have lower than average electricity prices, but we're not. I can think of a lot of states that have cheaper power. And so I clicked to see what study he's citing to, expecting it's going to be, I don't know, Rocky Mountain Institute or one of the green think tanks. It's a Wallet Hub survey that says that Colorado's in the top 10 alongside states like California is also, California known for its very cheap energy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. California, that low electricity rate state.
Yeah, and that the most expensive energy, according to this Wallet Hub survey, is Wyoming.
At 8 cents a kilowatt hour.
And what the study actually did is it's kind of just a sloppy amalgamation of costs for things like oil and propane and gasoline costs, and they all mix it into one. So it basically flattens things like California having the most expensive electricity rates in the entire country because they live in temperate, oceanside climates where they don't use a ton of electricity, and states like Wyoming that have bitter, harsh winters get penalized, and it's very rural. It's a rural state, so a lot of folks use fuel oil and propane and less, efficient heating, and so it just basically fudges the numbers into a survey that no one would ever cite as their frame of reference for what expensive or cheap energy is. And I could not get past that second paragraph and the source it cited for busting out laughing. It's just insane.
So it's now a credible. So Wallet Hub is now a credible resource to cite in an opinion column from the executive director of Colorado's energy office.
Yeah.
I mean, just wrap your mind around that for a second. So let's go on to paragraph number 3. Listen to this. Our state's utility policies are focused on 3 pillars: affordability, reliability, and reducing greenhouse gas pollution. Listen, we've talked about this a number of times. Colorado has a myopic view of energy policy. It is strictly through the lens of emissions, and then reliability and cost are secondary. And in fact, you rarely even hear them talk about cost, which is what's astonishing to me, because we've asked them a bunch of times, so what's your plan going to cost? What's it going to cost? What's it going to cost? And they don't talk about it. The one thing Polis has said, we just know it's not going to cost as much as you say it's going to cost. Well, turns out you're right. It costs more than what we initially said. So $60 billion, $61 billion for wind, solar, and batteries that barely meets reliability requirements isn't cheap. I don't care what you say. And by the way, it's going to be way more than that because they don't include transmission lines. They don't include any of the ancillary costs. And then they go on to say, the vast majority of utilities have found that the lowest cost path to meeting all 3 goals is retiring old, high-cost coal plants and replacing them with lower-cost wind, solar, backed up by batteries and gas. No, it's not. You know what they found? It's the most profitable way for them to do it.
I was going to say.
So let me rewrite that for you. Utilities agree to go along with the mandates, government mandates, because they make a fortune off of accelerated depreciation of retiring coal plants that are perfectly good and replacing them and building more and expanding their asset base. He must think we're stupid.
Especially, think of just the Comanche 3 plant alone was built to run till 2070. In what world is a market-driven, purely economics company saying, that thing that we totally built all our modeling around running till 2070, we think actually 2030 is super cheap and it's not even paid off, but we'll just shut that right down, and that's totally market-driven. And
it's market-driven, and we're going to get $1 billion out of you guys.
The only reason they do that is because the regulations allow them to recover the cost, even though they're not going to use it anymore. They get to recover the cost of building that and make a profit on it. So,
and then this one, at the federal level, the Trump administration is limiting the energy choices available to utilities and consumers, playing politics with the free market by picking winners and losers.
Physician, heal thyself.
Oh my God. We have talked about the Trump administration executive orders that has given a reprieve that breathed life into coal. They actually said the war on coal is over. If anybody has expanded the choices of energy, it has been this administration, and picking winners and losers when you've mandated the shutdown of all thermal generation. So when you have a mandate of net zero by 2040, exactly how are you not picking winners and losers?
I think it's a fair question. Yeah.
It is astounding. Now, I will say this. Just based on what I've read, Trump hates wind. It's personal.
It is personal.
It's personal.
Yeah.
It's personal. He hates wind. But the Trump administration right now is not stopping the state of Colorado from building wind.
Right.
The thing
it's all about addition.
Yeah. And here's the thing. what they want to do, and what I would support, is getting rid of the subsidies for it. Get rid of all the subsidies for wind and solar, and then I tell you what, nobody's building it.
Maybe Will Tour will be on board with that because he likes market-driven
Yeah,
stuff, right?
well,
No subsidies, right? Market-driven.
because, well, for them, tax incentives are market-driven.
No,
What?
that's true.
Like, stop. The government. Colorado has had, would you say, 100 bills? And I think under Hicken or Ritter, it was almost 60.
Yeah.
To mess with Colorado's energy production. So what I actually heard somebody say to me, Amy, coal is shutting down based on the market. No, it's not. It's shutting down because it's mandated. So anyway, this whole thing is just riddled with bad math and gaslighting.
It is, but there's one section I do have to give Will Tour credit for, and I think we should remark on, as much as the rest of it is a lot of gaslighting, is one paragraph. It's buried pretty low in the piece, so read that how you will. But he says in one part, we need a wide variety of resources, not just wind and solar. That is why Governor Polis signed a bipartisan law this year to clarify that nuclear energy can be part of Colorado's future clean energy mix. Pretty Johnny come lately on this, right? How long have we been saying that the myopic focus on just wind and solar is a fantasy and it's going to lead to unaffordability and unreliability? And how long have we been saying that you should embrace nuclear energy, Will Tour? A bill passed in 2018 that encourages your office to promote nuclear as a cleaner resource, and they've been mum for so long. I guess finally, in the year 2025, it's finally time to make good on that and then bury one nice word about a broad portfolio of reliable resources and say positive things about nuclear energy. I guess that's the best we're going to hope for from these folks, but I'm just shocked to see that in there.
To the point, that's why Governor Polis signed a bipartisan law this year. No fanfare. By the way, we know that some legislators asked for a bill signing. He wouldn't do it.
Yep.
Listen, this was under the radar because the mega churches don't like nuclear. They don't want it. It is so the fact that he put that in there, and I don't even I haven't talked to Will Tour, so I can't validate. I don't know if this is true or not, but people have said who are around him that he doesn't like nuclear. He's not interested in it.
Yeah.
So stop acting like you do. And this is why this year we clarified that it's a clean resource.
Right.
What it was a cleaner resource, but it wasn't a clean resource. And why? Because people like Will Tour and others, they kept saying, well, the economics don't work. Well, who cares if the economics don't work? Just put it as a clean resource, and they wouldn't even do it. So don't get me started. And then there's one other one that I've got to bring up, but it's right after that one. After that paragraph about nuclear, electric vehicles, heat pumps, and industrial innovation to reduce emissions, including efforts in the oil and gas sector, as if it'll still be there, will continue to drive significant growth in power demand in Colorado over the coming decades and will save people money on fuel costs for driving and for heating their homes. Well, one, it's not going to save you anything because you're going to have to spend a fortune. But what I love is that he acts like it's going to drive growth. No, it's forcing growth because these are going to be mandates. Oh,
and it's funny, there's no hyperlink in that paragraph in the Wallet Hub survey to back that up, because even NREL has found in Colorado, at least heat pumps, for instance, don't save you any money. Your cold climate heat pumps that you need to work in Colorado don't actually save you money because natural gas is pretty cheap in Colorado. So I couldn't help but notice no site, no source there to back up that claim. So I don't know if you have any other critiques you want to touch on before we wrap up here.
I think there's, if you want to read it, here's the one thing I do want to say. It's not that we're anti-looking at resources by emissions. It's just one factor.
Right.
It's just one. It's a factor.
Yep.
There are a number of things that should come into play with energy, and it isn't just emissions.
Yep.
The other thing is and I think we both what we're opposed to: bad math, and inefficiency, and inefficient use of precious resources, and that includes capital resources.
Right.
So you hate wind and solar. It's funny, I actually think there's a place for solar. I don't think there's any place for industrial wind. The place for solar to me is in homes, individual residential on a small scale. That being said, if somebody wanted to have a wind turbine, what would we care? I wouldn't care at all. But having to pay for the inefficiency of wind and and the ancillary costs that it takes to actually deploy it, no, I'm 100% opposed to all of that. So, yeah.
And what gets me is telling me that mandates are somehow market driven.
Yeah,
That's the one.
yeah.
That's the extra one that kind of
Joe Biden's sharp and engaged,
right?
And vaccine mandates are choice.
As good free marketeers, work in a free market think tank. I just can't abide being telling me that this is free market in action here. I just can't.
160 pieces of legislation later.
Right. The free market at work.
The free market's working.
As we're coming up on time here, Amy, you kind of laid out a couple takeaways for our listeners. Do you have any other ones?
So I just got to say, an A to Will Tour on gaslighting. Man, the guy's better than he's up there with Corinne Jean-Pierre. Like, that is good stuff. You and wrote it and actually published it and has his name and his photograph by it. So I give him credit for that. I also want to use something you said. I love the idea. Calvin Coolidge, quoting Calvin Coolidge. Yeah. Better to kill a bad bill than get a good one passed. So you know what? I'm going to say that killing that smug, insufferable, mean girl bill out of at the state capitol, the one, mandate stickers on propane tanks and gas tanks, killed the bad bill. So thank goodness for that. And then, I think once again, it applies. Firm your own grid, get a generator for your own house.
Yep, you're going to have to, because it's, as the op-ed makes clear, they are dedicated to the current trajectory, and they're not, at least for now, they're not looking to...
they're not moving.
That's right. But that does it for us on another episode here at PowerGab. If you like what you saw, you can head over to powergab.org to check out our entire back catalog. We produce new episodes every single week. We're also available wherever you get your audio shows, whether that's Spotify or Apple. And if you want to reach out to us to suggest future show topics or guests that you'd like to see us interview, you can send those our way at info@powergab.org. We always love hearing from you guys. And until next week, we'll see you.